Welcome to Ground Up Growth, where we share entrepreneurial insights, business strategies, and personal growth lessons to help listeners build success from the ground up.
Welcome back to Ground Up Growth. Today is episode 18, and I have Mr. Don Clark here with us today. Mr. Don is a lawyer and a former chairman of Butler Snow Law Firm. Mr. Don, Thank you so much for coming on.
Pleasure to be here.
Can't wait to hear your story, and it's a good one, I have heard. So thank you so much for coming on. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in Waynesboro, Mississippi, small town, southeast Mississippi. Most of my family on both sides grew up and lived in Waynesboro, so it's multiple generations. Most of my family is still down in Waynesboro. My father started a successful business, Clark Oil Company, which is still owned and operated today by one of my brothers. And but you know, even though I could have been part of the family business, probably should have been in retrospect, I decided to follow in the footsteps of a couple of my uncles, or one of my uncles who was a lawyer and then a judge, and my grandfather was a lawyer. So for some reason, the older of three sons, I always thought that I was going to go to law school, and I did. And so kind of had an interesting journey there. When I went to USM undergraduate and then Ole Miss Law School.
Let me cut you off
Sure.
there. Did you have any jobs before college?
The only job that I had before college was actually working for my father in a couple of different ways. One, he had a gas station there in Waynesboro, so there was one summer I pumped gas. And then I graduated from that to working in his office, I suppose sorting invoices and that kind of thing, you know, kind of a paperwork kind of job. So, so that was pretty much it as far as jobs that I had before I started school, you know, working for my father, which I thoroughly enjoyed and learned a lot, I should say. But it didn't particularly influence me to go into the family business. I was always focused on law and just assumed that that's what I would do. So so after I finished undergraduate school at Southern, then on to law school, and when I got out of law school, I really did not know what I wanted to do. I had you know, a choice of trying to go somewhere like Jackson or Hattiesburg or go back to Waynesboro. And I had the opportunity to go back to Waynesboro and just have a general practice down there. But I was single at the time, and I really didn't want to do that. And so my uncle suggested, till I figured out what I wanted to do, that I move to Jackson and go to work for the state attorney general's office. And that's what I did. And I worked there for 7 years, and that time in the AG's office influenced my whole legal career because of two things. I got to know governmental law, and I got to know politics. And so those two things combined to lead me eventually, I don't know how much detail you want to get into about the various steps along the way, but when I left the AG's office, decided to go somewhere I could make a little bit more money. I was engaged, we were getting married soon, and so I was looking to go into something to be able to, you know, go into private practice and go from there.
How old are you at this point?
Oh, I'm probably 31, 32 at this point, you know. So I left, went into private practice, and then eventually I was able to go with a group of guys that we're starting a municipal bond practice, which, for those of you that don't know what that is, that's when the city or the county or the state borrow money to build whatever, bridges, roads,
Yeah.
civic centers, you name it, they have to borrow money. And so we handled, quote, the paperwork on setting up these bond issues. So I did that, and we built up a thriving practice. Became probably the most dynamic bond practice going on in the state of Mississippi at the time. And that's when Butler Snow came calling. They didn't have a bond practice. They wanted a bond practice. So they approached us about joining Butler Snow. Butler Snow at that time was still the biggest firm in the state, but probably had less than 100 lawyers at that point.
How old were you when Butler Snow came calling?
That's probably in my my early 50s, and so we decided to join Butler Snow, and all of us that joined pretty much are still there if they haven't retired. And so we joined Butler Snow, and that was a great combination. Truly one of those combinations where they are a big outfit that needs something, we were the something, and combined together, and it
Good
just
bolt-on,
gelled. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. So so there I am at Butler Snow. We have this bond practice, and pretty soon all of us that came began to kind of gain positions of leadership in Butler Snow. And the chairman of Butler Snow at the time, a guy named Steve Rosenblatt, who's recruited me personally, he was a visionary, and he had thought Butler Snow should grow. And if we were going to succeed, we needed to grow and expand geographically. And so he was able, I believe, to open an office on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi and an office in Memphis. And so then when he went out as chairman, they asked me to be chairman. And so, and I'm summarizing a lot of time and years and steps here, but I came in with the same vision that we shared, which was we had to grow. And so that's,
How old were you when you stepped in as chairman?
I was probably about 57, 58, something like
Okay.
that. And so basically what happened is we began to grow organically, hiring great people. But then I also saw the opportunity to grow by additions of groups. And that accelerated over time to the point that by the time I was finished as chairman, we had grown from 100, 120 to over 400 lawyers.
Wow.
And we had offices in 25 locations across the southeast, out to Texas, up New Mexico, Colorado, and then up the east, and we opened an office in New York. And then we had a very specialty practice that was international tax, and we were able to open an office in London, then Singapore, and then Hong Kong.
Goodness.
So we
Yes.
expanded rapidly, and it was all going well. The reality is we knew to survive, we had to get bigger and better paying clients to mix with the strong local focus that we have in our local market, not only here in Mississippi, but
Right.
Alabama, wherever. And so we mixed those two things together and grew quite successfully, and we were recognized as one of the fastest growing firms in the United States. And so that was a lot of fun. That certainly was the highlight of my career because I had been practicing law as a municipal bond lawyer, and I intended to keep doing that when I became chairman, but that soon proved to be not possible. So I became kind of full-time chairman running the firm. And then, of course, we had a lot of this growth going on. And I had a lot of great help. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't me.
Right.
It was a team of people that worked on this. But the reality
So you kind of
is,
moved from practicing law to actually running a business.
Running a business.
And
like
growing and building.
Yeah, I told you before, a lot of people don't necessarily consider a law firm a business, but it is. And it has all the dynamics of any other business. And, the reality is that we had to run the business in a very professional, hopefully profitable way, which we did. But we also were engaged, like a lot of companies are, in merger and acquisition activity, which is the fun part of running a business. Acquiring other groups at this point all over the world. There was a funny story. So when we opened the Hong Kong office, along the way we had added as consultants to the firm both Haley Barber and Trent Lott. And so we went to open the Hong Kong office, and we decided we would have a symposium on tax changes going on in the United States, spoken to by Haley Barber, who was not only governor of Mississippi, but he's a fantastic lobbyist, and Trent Lott, who was majority senator in the Senate. They knew tax law and what was going on in the Congress. So we had them speak as a way to establish our Butler Snow office in Hong Kong. And I introduced them, and I said, I don't know how much you're going to learn about tax law, but you're going to hear a couple of world-class Southern accents. And they did, and it went over very well. So it was a lot of fun during those times to add those offices. And
So each one of those offices, all 25 or so, I mean, I'm assuming you went to each one of those.
Oh,
and
sure, yeah.
Did you spend extended time in each of those locations?
Not really.
Because I'd love to hear how that impacted your personal life. Because, I mean, that's...
Well, it was a lot, because there was a lot of... I had this particular guy, partner at Butler Snow, a guy named Ryan Beckett, that served as our lateral chairman, and he was one that really had the road responsibility. He would go and meet these people and go back and forth and essentially negotiate the deal. So I didn't have to spend that much time on the road, and I couldn't, because I was still running the day-to-day activities of the firm. So we, like I said before, we had a team of people that did this, and our administrative staff, from the, connecting them to our computer systems, the IT, the telephone systems, it was a huge deal.
Undertaking.
We had a team of people that had to spend a lot of time on the road at these various offices getting everything done. So I personally didn't have to do that, but there were an awful lot of phone calls day and night. Yeah, it was that's one of the things that is hard when you're a successful businessman, attorney, doctor, whatever you call it, whatever you are. You have to try to balance that personal side of your life with the business side of your life. And some people don't do that very well, and they end up paying the price down the line. I'm glad to say that, I've been married 45 years, got 2 children that are both successful. So my wife and I did something right along the way, but there were challenges, no
doubt.
question about it. And Patty was right there, totally supportive all the way through. And I don't think I could have done it without that support, you know. So, it's a big challenge. But I think every successful businessman faces those kind of challenges.
Right, for sure. Yeah, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. No, that's wow. I'm still trying to process that. That's I've added a satellite branch, but not in Hong Kong. So that's very impressive.
Yeah. Well, again, it was just a combination of circumstances that made those opportunities arise. And I'm kind of I'm kind of entrepreneurial. I will say that, and I've told other people this. One of my sons that was talking about going to law school at some point, and he's entrepreneurial. And I said, look, don't do it, because law school will beat the very last ounce of entrepreneurial out of you. Because law school teaches you to recognize, analyze, and mitigate the risk. And most entrepreneurs don't go into a potential deal looking so strongly at the risk. Luckily, because that's why you have lawyers to do that.
Right.
They'll advise you on the risk. But an entrepreneur basically looks at the upside of the deal. Some of them don't ever look at the downside of the deal, which is a mistake, of course. But don't let the risk override your ability, your natural ability to go put a deal together.
That is amazing, and that is so funny that what you just said. We literally we filmed 2 episodes at a time, and so this, what I'm referring to, came out will have come out 2 weeks ago. But Bridgeford Rutledge, that we just interviewed, who's a serial entrepreneur,
Right.
attorney, real estate development, we spoke about that exact thing.
Yeah.
About, he says his wife says he's too optimistic, but in the same breath, it's like what I told him. I could, from being a land and home broker, I can talk you out of any deal.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
We can find a risk with anything that validates to back out of a deal. And so I think you hit the nail on the head. The entrepreneur leans more, like, you got to have due diligence. You got to shoot holes in things to protect yourself. It can't be all
Sure.
positive, like you said. But you've got to lean on the optimism in order to make the deal work. And that's where risk comes in. That's where, big, great deals that happen, they weren't just laying on a platter for everybody to see who wanted it.
That's right. Yeah.
So I love the way that you unpack that, because that's what it is. Everybody looks at the end result and says, oh, must be nice and this and that, but nobody was there on the front end.
That's right. That's right. Even before I became chairman of Butler Snow, when I was a practicing attorney, I was fortunate to have represented a lot of entrepreneurs, names that you would recognize in this state, very wealthy individuals, and I would advise them on different things they were looking at, and again, going back to law school, they would teach you to look at those risks, and the end result is sometimes, attorneys have a tendency to say, no, you can't do this. The law says you can't do this, or it's gray area, and I always felt like, let's look at the positive side, how you can do this. And then a very, underutilized technique is, well, if the law is unclear or it's gray, or even if it does really say no, then let's go change the law. And I just happened to, my background, back to the Attorney General's office, saw that laws get made, laws get changed, laws get overturned. And so part of the legislative process is having input from people who have experienced that law. And my experience was the legislature is very open to listening to that, and if there's a problem, let's change the law. Not a lot of people know how to go about doing that.
Right.
But that is something that was a significant part of my practice at the time. And so I know everybody loves to bash public officials and legislature and all that. I don't. I've sat in their shoes before, and I've seen how they operate, and bottom line, I think that we're blessed to have some pretty good people that will listen to the issues, and if they can change them, if you make good arguments,
Right.
they can or will. So that was I always just felt that there was a way to get things done, either by finding a way under existing law, or if necessary, making the pitch that the law ought to be changed.
Right.
And so I spent a lot of time doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So you told JP not to go to law school.
Yeah, he would vouch for me on that. I mean, he would make a great lawyer, don't get me wrong. He can argue with anybody. But I just think that, you know, you've got to do what your passion is.
Right.
And then I grew up and I thought law was going to be my passion, and it was. But that's not for everybody. That's not for everybody's skill set. And so, you know, you could make the argument that you go to law school and you learn a lot about the law, and you can use that in your business career. And there's probably some truth to that. I know the gentleman
Right.
you just mentioned has done that. But at the same time, you go to law school, and I do think that they put a lot of emphasis on what are the risks, and you begin to look at it in that way.
Right.
And so that sometimes can be counterproductive to the
Right.
entrepreneurial
And that's
spirit.
what, we've hit on that a lot, you know, and not to bash college, but that, you know, anything outside of an attorney, an engineer, or
Yeah.
whatever, I always refer to it as a chute. I mean, it's a cattle chute.
Yeah.
Where this is where you're going,
Yeah.
and you're going to come out the other
That's
end
right.
an engineer.
Yeah.
And for the entrepreneur, and again, like you said, the skill set, not everybody's different. The passions are different, the skill sets are different. But for those people that are entrepreneurs, they're getting pigeonholed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I don't know. Like the thinking outside the box, like all that, like that's just how I was in college. Like I just paid no attention in class. I was literally in class thinking about things outside, like thinking outside the box, how I could do this or do that, you know. And if you've got that in you and that is just part of your being, I'm in the camp of let's pry that out.
Yeah.
You know, and that's,
Well, you know, you could have elected, I follow your career, and you could have elected to be and are a very, very successful real estate broker. And you could have made a good living doing that. And then you veered off, you continued to do that, but you also saw opportunities on your own to do projects or whatever.
right.
And you did that. And so that's as entrepreneurial as you can get, you know. So
Right.
I think that's great. In the legal profession, you don't see that as much. Now I do say that you know, of course, I come from a big firm background where we kind of represent business side and corporate side of things and defense side of things. But my friends that are in the plaintiff's lawyer world, they are entrepreneurial, because I share one thing with them, that in my own practice as a municipal bond lawyer, I only got paid if the deal closed, just like you.
Oh, so eat
Just
what you
like
kill.
That's right. I only got paid if the deal closed. And plaintiffs' lawyers only get paid if they win the case. Mm-hmm. And I know there's some crossover between defense and plaintiffs on that concept. But so that's why I had to be a little bit more entrepreneurial in my practice than, say, somebody that was working for a company and they were billing by the hour.
Right,
you
staff
know.
attorney, something. Yeah.
Right. So I'm not dissing all attorneys or anything like that as being
Yeah.
not entrepreneurial, because some certainly are. I'm just saying that in my practice,
You had to produce.
We had to produce, and then when I got to be chairman, the entrepreneurial part came into play when we started
Building the business.
just building the business and growing and doing deals. So again, that was a lot of fun.
So was that part of your career where you kind of pivoted from municipal bond attorney to chairman building a business? Was there a new passion that you kind of found there in building a business, or did you always have an inkling of, like, because kind of rabbit trail, but career burnout is a real thing that happens to everybody.
Right.
I had this conversation yesterday with somebody. I don't care if you're running a tiki hut. I don't care if you're a snow skiing instructor. You're going to have career burnout.
Sure.
I've had it twice.
Yeah.
Being transparent and vulnerable. I've been in real estate since 2011, so 14 years, and I've been through 2 rounds of I'm done with this. And people from the outside be like, what are you even talking about? Like, everything's rolling good, whatever.
Yeah.
But like, did you ever go through career burnout? Or did you just love it that much?
You know, I don't know that I loved it that much. I don't know that I hated it either.
Right.
But, you know, it's like where I'm in my life right now. I'm 76 years old, and I'm still working.
Still doing
necessarily, yeah. I hadn't built a podcast empire yet, like some people have. But you know, I think it helped that kind of within my career I kind of changed focus a few times, and so that helped a lot. Probably much like you did from being, you know, starting your career as a broker and being very successful, and then branching off and doing these other deals.
It's very
that you're
parallel.
doing.
I did. You know, I had these goals early on of I wanted to be the number one land broker. I wanted to be the number one residential. Like I wanted to, you know, it was individually. I wanted, and I hit those goals, you know. But then, like, part of the entrepreneurial deal is like once you catch the carrot, then it's like, where's the next carrot? And that we talked about that on Bridgeland podcast. That is a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
But I did that, and then I moved to the firm. Now I want the firm to be the number one firm.
Right.
So I would chase that, grew the firm, hit that, and like you hit it, and then it's like, what's the next thing? And then it's like, all right, I want to go into real estate development because it takes money to make money, and you know, we've been frugal over the years, and we're in a position, and my passion's there, and I love taking risk, and so we go in and do that. So I agree. I think I could totally see where, like, if you're doing the municipal stuff and you've kind of like you've achieved it, you know, per se, the pinnacle or whatever that is, and then it's almost like a reset, refresh, new windshield. All right, let's build it. Let's build this thing.
And see, building the municipal bond practice at the prior firm that Butler Snow acquired. We worked on that, me and the guys that I work with, we worked on that 10 years, and it was adding people there to get to where we were an entity that a Butler Snow would be interested in.
Right.
You know, much like you see startup companies be acquired by bigger companies. That's exactly what happened.
Exactly what happened.
Except it's in the legal space, and nobody really
it's just not really framed up like a M&A deal.
Exactly. Nobody thinks of that, but it is. And so that's what happened. So we went through a
Was that the plan?
No, it really wasn't. We built that up, and we were building a really good 20, 25 person firm located in downtown Jackson, and we thought we got this going, we can keep it going and doing well. And then, you know, Butler Snow inquired. And
how long can you say how long that process took?
It took about start to finish about 6 months, as I recall. And quite honestly,
that's not bad for a bunch of attorneys.
No, it wasn't. it was. I can't say it was easy sledding all the way, because it wasn't. But But the thing that I wasn't personally interested in doing it. And I thought we had a good thing going.
Right.
But I went to some of our younger lawyers who were looking out at a longer horizon than I was, and they saw a lot of security going to this bigger firm. And so they said, "Yeah, we want to do it." And so that's why we did it. It was more them than us older heads that wanted to do it. But once we did it, it was really good. It was a funny story.
You being open to doing that, though, the quote unquote the older heads, like y'all could have dug your heels in and been like, "I'm not interested."
We could have, but you know,
I think that's a huge testament to me, like that you being open to the younger attorneys and looking out at their best interest.
Yeah.
It turns out that sounds like that was the right move to
It
do.
was the right move to do, and you know, and while I wasn't necessarily for it to start with, I soon became enamored with it myself, and soon after we made the deal happen, Butler Snow had a quote firm retreat, and so they asked me to speak to the merger, and they always kid me about saying this. It was off the cuff, but I said, you know, when we joined Butler Snow, we brought the bottom line up and the total IQ down. Because Butler Snow was generally regarded as this group of people that are all number one out of their class, and,
Right.
and we weren't, you know. But we were entrepreneurial,
But
you know.
there you go, and you brought the
And of
brought
course
the bottom
that's
line up.
not true. That's a stereotype anyway. But nonetheless, that's what happened, and it meshed well, and it worked.
Right.
You know, so.
That's incredible. Well, I commend you. Y'all did an excellent job with that, and you've had a heck of a career. So, switching gears a little bit, JP told me you're into beekeeping now.
Not really. He and my other son Trey, who's a cardiologist here in town, gave me a couple of bee boxes for for Christmas. And so I put them together, went to beekeeper training and all that, and you know, they gave them to me, so I had to kind of, you know,
Yeah.
I hope I'm not telling on myself now, but so I got a couple of hives of bees, and I put them in the box, and or the two boxes, and apparently one hive within less than a week left and went somewhere else, and the other set of bees is still humming around that box, but I have not gone to look. I have not one time. I am not into being stung. I'll say that.
That's what my dad does. He's got a bunch of bees, and he'll get stung like 20 times
man,
in a day, and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, go to Kroger and spend $7. You know,
yeah.
Must be back to passion. It must be a big passion. I'm like, man, like I'll buy all your honey from you and let you get stung, and he'll want to put I'll buy land, and he'll want to put the boxes on the land, but then I sell it, and I'm like, hey, come get your bees. And he's like, where am I going to take them? You got to buy somewhere else.
Yeah.
Now I'm like a bee land acquisition broker. I got to find somewhere to relocate the bees.
That's apparently an issue. I've had somebody ask me about relocating boxes on our land out there, and then when I was picking up my 2 sets of bees, there was one guy there that had, I forgot how many he said, and he's got a well-known bee honey company, but he has to find land located all over this area and the Delta to have his boxes. So it's a big business, but I'm personally not big business. I'm kind of wishing that other set of bees would go ahead.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I stay busy though, you know. I've got, of course, I'm still affiliated with Butler Snow. I'm, quote, of counsel to Butler Snow.
Yeah, I was curious on that.
Yeah. So I don't practice law full-time or anything like that, but I help the firm primarily with clients that I've had over the years. I make sure they're in the right hands. I do some business development stuff, do some politics has always been something I've been involved in, so I stay involved in that. So that's one part of what I do. And then I'm on the board of Renaissance Bank, and been on that board, I suppose, 6 or 7 years, and that's a lot of fun, very exciting.
Did they just buy out?
They just bought the first,
Yeah.
and so that was a huge deal that took I suppose a year and a half to get done, and but great people, really enjoyed being on.
Did you want to jump in that, like your history with the M&A?
I did not. Talk about
Let me show y'all how to do this real quick.
Talk about technical. Man, banks are so regulated. It's better now than it was 2 or 3 years ago, but still, that is a complicated deal. And So we had to be involved as a board and oversee and take certain actions, but all of the actual negotiating and legal work was done by others, and I was glad that was the case.
Right.
But I've enjoyed that. And then about a year or so ago, I got appointed by Governor Reeves to the Institutions of Higher Learning Board, the College Board, as most people call it, which is the board that oversees all the public institutions of higher learning in the state.
Nice.
And that has been real interesting because I didn't know that much about it. And it's just a huge responsibility, a lot more than do I pull for state or do I pull for Ole Miss? It's much bigger than that. And so that's been interesting. So those three things is kind of what keeps me busy. And I've seen what happened to people that quit.
Right? Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. I mean, you're continuing. I mean, at your age, you're continuing your learning, even though you've scaled back.
Sure.
You've gotten out of the weeds, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think that's what we'll kind of end on this. I guess I'd love to get just some advice. What advice would you give somebody? What would you give a young Don Clark, maybe 20 years old, thinking about getting into law school or whatever? I know you mentioned passion a lot, and then obviously you're doing continuing ed is a big part of things. What kind of advice would you give somebody that's just contemplating, maybe at a fork in the road, at age 20 or so, thinking about college or?
Yeah, I've had a lot of people come to me over the years that are wanting to get into the legal field, and I've talked to them about the practicalities of it and how it's changed over the years. And so many people want to become a lawyer, for example, because they think, oh, I want to be up in a courtroom, I want my feet, and I want to argue this case and argue that case. And certainly that's still, if you're lucky, that happens. But at the same time, you've got to be prepared for a lot of office work, a lot of paperwork, a lot of computer time. It's changed than when my grandfather had a case and walked across the street, was arguing at the courthouse, and you could go see him. That's changed a lot. There are still great lawyers who can go to court and do go to court and make arguments and try cases and that kind of thing. But it's a much smaller percentage, I think, overall of what it used to be. But it all goes to identifying what your passion really is and going for that. It's drudgery when you're doing something you really don't want to do. And so that's the most important thing. And you kind of have to find that yourself,
right,
what that is. But I would do a lot of investigation as to, if I'm looking at a particular field, what does that really entail day to day? Not to go into the court, one time in 2 years or whatever, but what is it day to day?
What are you going to be doing?
What are you going to be doing day to day? And are you going to like that?
Right.
The other thing in my career, I had a mentor early on, and I watched him operate. He was a lawyer, and the thing that I learned early on, I would come in his office and say, man, I cannot believe, this happened. This guy really screwed me, or he stole a deal that I sure thought I had, whatever. And I'd get mad, and I'd want to find a way to get back at that guy that stole the deal, or whatever he did, whatever I was mad about.
Right.
And, like we were talking about before we went online, you can spend a lot of time worrying and losing sleep over things like that. And this guy said, look, don't burn any bridge. Don't burn it. That guy one day maybe can help you and become a good friend of yours. And so I started looking at it like that. I said, okay, he got me on that deal, but I'm not going to put him on the enemies list and just never do business with him again or have anything to do with him. And that really worked for me many times going forward. Potential enemies became friends.
Wow.
And it's all because I didn't retaliate immediately over something like that.
Even though you were wrong.
Even though.
In a situation where you were wrong.
Yeah. And so.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah,
I like that.
It helped me a lot because generally there's not that many just bad people in this world. There's some good people. And just because we crossed up on one thing, am I going to make him a lifetime enemy? No.
Right.
I'm not going to do it. I was going to,
right.
but this guy
but your
showed
mentor
me.
stepped in.
He showed me how it can come back around, and you can make a friend out of that person. And I mean, after all, he beat you on something, so he has something going for him, So
that's one way to look at it. I
yeah.
think that's really, really good insight because, like you said, I mean, they could 5 years from now, they may. Who says they're not going to have a change of heart?
That's right.
And apologize to you.
Yeah.
But if you burn the bridge,
Yeah.
I
If
like
they're
that.
successful, they had to have something going for them, And so.
I try to do that in my field with, like, say, when because we got agents that'll come and go over the years. And I just know a lot of brokers that if an agent comes to them, like they're going to leave and go to another firm, then they just get mad and just slam the door and just like, don't, and they do burn that bridge.
Right.
Whereas I make a point anytime an agent leaves, and I've had some that have done me wrong, and I probably wasn't as nice to them when they left. But what I try to do with every one of them is, I leave that door open.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have had this happen. They have left and they have come back.
Come back, yeah.
But
it's not always green.
But if you don't look at it through the lens of what's in it for me, I'm losing part of my bottom line. Therefore, I'm going to be mad and shun you, and I don't want nothing to do with you. If you I tell everybody that leaves, if you truly are trying to better yourself and you think this is the next chapter or whatever, I should be nothing but supportive of that.
Right.
And whenever I'm supportive in an exit interview, when you go to leave, you're going to leave saying, you know what, Paul's actually a good dude.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, you never know what. I've had other people that have left that refer people to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Left my firm.
Exactly.
So I think that's very powerful, and I really like that. I love how it was a mentor that
convinced me of that, because it was not my natural tendency to do that. I'll be honest with you. I wanted to, retaliate, scheme around and retaliate. But no, it works. It works well, and just in general, things are going to go south on you sometimes. You're not going to get everything you want, and it's one of these things where you just need to find a way to get over it and not let it ruin the rest of your day. I was telling you, football, if my team lost on the weekend, it would ruin my weekend. I don't let that happen anymore.
Right.
And
can't do that in Mississippi.
You can't do that. You can't do that. No, for sure.
Maybe if you lived in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, maybe so. Well, they're getting their share of it now.
Exactly. No, you're exactly right. And we talked about this kind of before we did the podcast, but just, because I've struggled with it, being vulnerable, like in real estate development. That's a very touchy deal.
Yeah.
And people do not like you developing around them.
Oh,
Whether you've got good intentions, like I'm doing nothing wrong, or whatever it is. And it's like people, it don't matter if you're putting a lemonade stand up or what, somebody is going to be offended or have something to say or be in opposition of what you're wanting to do. And I have struggled with that in the past because by nature I'm a people pleaser, but I've also come to grips with there's some people you literally cannot please.
No.
And the best, instead of wasting all this energy on trying to pacify that one person, the masses know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And your friends, your core people, everybody knows what kind of person you really are.
Right. That you're going to do
and
it right.
where your morals and ethics and everything truly lie. And that's what I have had to work on being water on a duck's back and just, letting that lay like it is. And I'm going to keep marching forward and continue to do the best thing. The worst thing I can do, to your point, is turn and lash out. And that's what
Yeah.
they're wanting you to do.
Sure, they're wanting you to do that. In the corollary to that is don't let it get to you either. Don't lose sleep over the fact that somebody else is, mad at you over something that you have every right to do. And it's one of these things where you just have to learn, okay, I'm a good person. I'm going to fundamentally do the right thing. And if I do that, then let the chips fall where they may, and they'll get over it, but don't lose a night's sleep either. Don't take away time from your family worrying about something that you can't really worry about.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Don, this has been a very productive conversation.
Well, thank you.
I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time. One of the biggest challenges with this podcast is just successful people are hard to pin down. You've been good, but I really appreciate you taking the time, because I know you're still a busy man, so I really appreciate it.
Well, it's been a pleasure, and gosh, I could sit here all day and look out at this view. This is
not
nice.
a bad view.
Yeah.
You should have been here a couple months ago when the sunflowers were in full bloom.
Oh,
Then it was
yeah.
really
Absolutely.
nice. So, well, bring your bee boxes, and we'll get you a spot out here. So, thank you, Mr. Don.
Paul. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.